Welcome to Mom's Kitchen Lessons. Today we are going to be making vegan stew. This is the stew recipe that I grew up on, except for instead of meat, we're going to be using portobello mushrooms, which give it a very meaty, this is the substitute for meat. In any dish that you want to make vegan that needs sort of like chunks of beef or a meaty kind of flavor, you want to use portobello mushrooms. So I've already pre-done some of the stuff in the casserole. I'm using a sort of medium to large Corningware casserole that has a lid. And in here I've already cut up some of the stuff that we're going to do. So I'll show you. The first thing we're using is baby gold. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's upside down. Baby gold potatoes. Whenever I use potatoes, I get organic, because usually I keep the skin on. So when you get, this was a bag of little potatoes. So they'll come in all different sizes. So I'm just showing you that there's, some small, some large, and you want to cut them up and they can be like this size, but you want them to be small enough that they're going to really get soft and cook nicely in the amount of time we're doing. So this big one I cut into 4s, but the small one I only cut in half. You could even make it in 4s, it'd be smaller pieces, but that's fine. Okay, then we have a carrot, which I'm just going to make in big chunks to sort of match the potatoes so that it doesn't get too overcooked and soft. This was just an interesting carrot that was in my carrot bag, which is a little deformed carrot, and very interesting because it's like this part wants to detach, but it's like it was 2 legs, but this leg didn't develop. It's very interesting. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm not going to use it. That's the little carrot. Now I have in here also Japanese sweet potatoes. This is what a Japanese sweet, this is a very small one. Usually you'll find the Japanese sweet potatoes very, very big. But this is what they look like on the outside. It's a red skin. And normally I would bake these and eat it with the skin and everything. But for the stew, I peel them. So I'm just I wanted to show you what it looked like so that you would know what a Japanese sweet potato looks like. And what this will do for the stew, Japanese sweet potatoes are very sweet. And they cook to a different consistency than the little gold potatoes. They're much softer when they bake. So they just really add a niceness to the little like sweetness, and it's really nice to have that in the stew, I think. The other thing I like to put in the stew sometimes, and I was going to get some today, but they didn't look good, is parsnips. And if you put parsnips in, it'll give it a really interesting flavor as well if you like parsnips. So they have a very unique flavor, and if you put them in the stew, you'll definitely taste the parsnip in the stew. So I'm just peeling this Japanese sweet potato, and like I said, when I bake these, I eat the skin, but for the stew, I don't want the skin because it's a little bit tougher for the stew. Like the skin on the gold potatoes is very thin and easy to eat. So just peeled it. I'm just going to rinse it off. Get the little rinsies off. And then the way I'm going to cut this is to sort of make it be similar in size to the little baby gold potatoes. So in order to do that, I'm just going to do that. So now you can see they're pretty similar. I mean, they're close enough to the size of the baby golds. So put those in. Okay. Okay, now you always want to have an onion in your stew. Now this stew recipe normally calls for baby peas, and over the years I've sort of tweaked the recipe a little bit, and sometimes I put the peas in and sometimes I don't. I tend to like it better without the peas, but that's a taste preference. So you can definitely put the little baby peas in. It's just canned peas. The little, you can get the generic kind or the lesser baby peas, young peas. And you can also put them in after the stew cooks so that they're not totally mushy, because they tend to cook really, you know, they're already soft from the can. Now for the onion, again, I'm making it sort of similar in size to the potatoes, so I'm just going to make it fairly large chunks. I like to put the onions on top, because as they cook down, they're going to really give everything a nice flavor. Let me get this onion going here. I should have prepped this. I had everything else prepped, but I forgot to prep the onion, so sorry. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. I'm gonna just make this into big chunks. Okay, so put the onion all in there like that. Get all that good flavor that's going to cook down over all the potatoes and carrots. And now we're going to do our mushrooms. So I rinsed these off. Now, I've heard people say you shouldn't rinse mushrooms with water, but I don't agree with that. I think you should always rinse off your mushrooms, because mushrooms are grown usually in some kind of like manure or compost of some sort. And I definitely think you should rinse them off, especially these portobellos that have all this ribbing under here. And I just put them in a bowl of water and rinse them off I let them get in the bowl, and then I rinse them off under the running water. So, and you can use the stem as well. I've already trimmed the stems off, so I'm going to use these stems. And again, I'm just going to cut it in a similar size as everything else that's in there. Now, I like to put the mushrooms in last, because they are serving as sort of that meatiness. So again, just like with the onions, they're going to cook down and give all their good flavor to all the stuff that's underneath of it. Get the stem off of here. I mean, you don't have to use the stem. I think I'm not going to use that stem. And a rough chop is fine, because everything's going to cook down, and it's, you know, so if you like to chop it, you know, you can chop the mushroom however you like to chop it. Sometimes when you see me doing certain things, it might not be the way you've seen it done by professionals or, you know, by other chefs, or cooks, or even home cooks, but I just do it my way. So it might not be like the professional way, but it's the way that I do it. So you can do it however you like. Okay, so that's all the mushrooms in there now. It looks really good. Now, I've preheated my oven to 375. So the original recipe of this particular stew that I grew up on is a stew that you kept in the oven all day at a very low temperature, like 275, because it was meat, it was stew meat. And so in order to get it really soft and good, you left it in the oven for a really long time on a low temperature. But because we're doing all veggies, you don't have to do that. So I'm going to cook it on 375 for an hour and 20 minutes. I just found that I started doing it at an hour, and I found that an hour and 20 minutes actually made everything better. So, okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to season it up. So what I like to use in the stew is this. This is from Trader Joe's. It's Mushroom and Company Multi-Purpose Umami. So umami is a flavor that you get from mushrooms, and actually the ingredients in here has mushrooms in it. So this is really a salt and sort of pepper and mushroom powder kind of concoction with other seasonings in it. But this is really good on the stew. So I just sprinkle it on. Again, I don't measure. I just sort of sprinkle it, and the more you put on, the more peppery it's going to be, because it does have a bit of a pepperiness to it. So that's good. Then you don't have to add any salt or pepper or anything like that. The last thing we're going to put on is a 32 ounce, this is a 29 ounce. I thought it was 32. A 29 ounce can of tomato sauce. I'm using the generic Giant brand tomato sauce. The Giant is our grocery store. And so I'm just going to pour that on. Let me get a spoon to get everything. There's a lot left in here, and I like to get it all. So I like this sauce. It has this particular tomato sauce, which is this one, the Giant brand, just plain tomato sauce. But it has ingredients in it that give it some flavor. So it's tomato puree, water, salt, onion powder, garlic powder, citric acid, natural flavors, dehydrated bell peppers. So this is a really nice flavored tomato sauce that I use for my chili and the stew. And when I've tried to make the chili with other tomato sauce, it just doesn't taste the same. So once the sauce is in here, I just sort of give it a little shimmy shake to get the sauce all incorporated through. And now we're going to put the lid on. And I do have a can of the little peas. So when this comes out of the oven, if I decide to put the peas in, I'll do it then. But for me, I prefer it without the peas. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in a 375 degree oven for 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I'll see you then. See you at the next video.